Research shows they form in less than 7 seconds. That's right. Before you speak, people decide if they trust you. This quick judgment can shape relationships, job opportunities, and more. Now let's understand this concept better. First impressions are automatic. They happen even when you're not trying. Your brain quickly assesses a person's appearance, body language, and even tone of voice. This process can be unconscious, yet powerful. Let's break it down into simple steps. First, focus on your appearance. People often judge you based on how you look. Dressing neatly can influence a positive first impression. Next, pay attention to your body language. Open gestures like uncrossed arms show you're approachable. Smiling also creates warmth, inviting trust. The third step is your tone of voice. A friendly, confident tone can captivate an audience instantly. Practice speaking clearly to enhance your message. Finally, consider making eye contact. This builds a connection and shows you are engaged. Remember, people feel valued when they believe you're listening. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine meeting a new client. You walk in, dressed well. Your open body language makes them feel comfortable. You smile and greet them with warmth. They instantly trust you, boosting your business's chance for success. To summarize, first impressions are formed within 7 seconds. They are influenced by your appearance, body language, tone, and eye contact. These elements can significantly affect how others perceive you. So, how can you make a great first impression? Start by being aware of your appearance and behavior. Practice positive body language and refine your speaking voice. Ready to make a lasting impression? Focus on these elements next time you meet someone new. Your future opportunities depend on it.
The brain reacts to rejection almost the same way it reacts to physical pain. That heartbreak you felt, your mind treated it like an actual injury. Rejection is one of the most painful emotional experiences a human can face. Whether it comes from love, friendship, family, or society, rejection activates ancient survival systems inside the brain. Scientists discovered something shocking. The same brain regions activated during physical pain also activate during emotional rejection. In simple words, your brain cannot fully separate emotional pain from physical pain. But why? Because throughout human evolution, social connection meant survival. Thousands of years ago, being rejected by your tribe could mean death. Isolation meant danger, starvation, and vulnerability. So the human brain evolved to fear rejection deeply. Even today, social exclusion triggers stress hormones like cortisol. Your heartbeat changes. Your mood drops. Your thoughts become negative. And sometimes, rejection creates emotional wounds that last for years. Psychologists call this social pain memory. The brain remembers painful rejection experiences and tries to avoid them in the future. This is why many people fear speaking up, approaching others, expressing feelings, or taking risks. The fear of rejection silently controls behavior. Ironically, humans often reject themselves before others even get the chance. Negative self-talk becomes a defense mechanism. If I expect rejection first, maybe it won't hurt as much, but this creates loneliness. And loneliness itself has become one of the biggest psychological health risks in modern society. Studies show chronic loneliness increases anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. Yet rejection also has a hidden purpose. Pain forces reflection. It pushes humans to grow, adapt, and seek deeper emotional understanding. Some of the strongest people in history were shaped by rejection. The truth is this: rejection does not always mean you are unworthy. Sometimes it simply means you were not meant for that person, place, or path. And often, the fear of rejection causes more suffering than rejection itself. Some people can control your emotions, choices, and behavior without you even realizing it. And the most dangerous manipulators never look dangerous. Dangerous manipulation is one of the oldest psychological weapons in human history. It works quietly, invisible, and often, the victim never notices until emotional damage is already done. Manipulators understand human weaknesses. They study emotions, insecurities, fears, and desires. Then they use them for control. One of the most common manipulation tactics is called gaslighting. Gaslighting happens when someone makes you question your own memory, emotions, or reality. Over time, the victim loses confidence in their own judgment. Another powerful tactic is emotional dependency. Manipulators alternate between affection and emotional distance. This creates confusion and emotional addiction. The victim becomes desperate for validation. Psychologists compare this to gambling addiction. Unpredictable rewards create stronger emotional attachment than constant rewards. Manipulators also use guilt. They make victims feel responsible for their pain, anger, or disappointment. Slowly, control becomes emotional imprisonment. Interestingly, many manipulators appear charming. They are often skilled communicators, confident, charismatic, socially intelligent. This makes manipulation difficult to detect. The human brain naturally trusts confidence. But true power in psychology comes from awareness. Once you recognize manipulation patterns, their influence weakens. Healthy relationships do not require fear, confusion, guilt, or constant emotional exhaustion. Real connection is built on honesty, respect, and emotional safety. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: the people who truly care about you will never need to control you. Your brain was designed to solve problems. But sometimes, it creates problems that never existed. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to protect you from uncertainty. The human brain constantly predicts possible dangers. It analyzes the past, imagines the future, and searches for hidden threats. This ability helped humans survive for thousands of years. But in modern life, overthinking often becomes mental torture. People replay conversations, analyze tiny details, imagine worst-case scenarios, and create anxiety from possibilities instead of realities. Psychologists believe overthinking is strongly connected to fear of uncertainty. The brain prefers painful certainty over unknown outcomes. This is why people sometimes stay in toxic situations. At least the pain feels familiar. Social media has made overthinking even worse. Humans now compare themselves to thousands of people every day. Every image, message, or delay in response becomes psychological fuel for anxiety. Overthinking also tricks the brain into believing thought equals action. But thinking endlessly rarely solves emotional problems. Instead, it drains energy, increases stress, and damages sleep. Ironically, highly intelligent people are often more vulnerable to overthinking, because their minds can imagine endless possibilities. The solution is not to stop thinking. That is impossible. The solution is learning when thoughts are useful, and when they are simply fear wearing the mask of logic. Why does one compliment make your entire day better, while one criticism can destroy your confidence for weeks? Humans are emotional social creatures. From childhood, the brain learns identity through the reactions of other people. Parents, friends, teachers, society. Validation tells the brain, you belong, and belonging is deeply connected to emotional survival. This is why likes, comments, compliments, and approval feel rewarding. They trigger dopamine inside the brain. the same chemical connected to pleasure and motivation. But validation becomes dangerous when self-worth depends entirely on others. People begin performing instead of living authentically. They hide emotions, change personalities, and sacrifice identity to gain approval. Social media intensified this psychological cycle. Modern humans now receive instant public judgment every day. Many people unconsciously measure their value through online attention. But external validation is temporary. No amount of approval permanently heals insecurity. Real confidence develops internally. It grows when a person accepts themselves even without applause. And perhaps the greatest psychological freedom comes from this realization: you do not need everyone to understand you in order to value yourself. Loneliness is not simply being alone. It is the painful feeling of being emotionally disconnected. A person can stand in a crowded room and still feel invisible. Modern society is more connected digitally than ever before. Yet loneliness continues to rise globally. Why? Because human connection is not measured by quantity. It is measured by emotional depth. Psychologists discovered loneliness affects both the brain and body. Chronic loneliness increases stress hormones, weakens the immune system, and raises risks of depression. The brain begins perceiving the world as emotionally unsafe. Over time, lonely individuals may avoid social situations entirely. This creates a painful cycle. Isolation increases loneliness, and loneliness increases isolation. Humans need emotional connection, not because they are weak, but because the brain evolved through relationships. Healing loneliness often begins with vulnerability. Real connection requires emotional honesty. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is simply say, "I need someone." Love feels magical. But behind every heartbeat, attachment, and emotional obsession, chemistry and psychology are working together. When humans fall in love, the brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. These chemicals create pleasure, bonding, and emotional attachment. Love changes behavior. People become more focused, emotionally sensitive, and sometimes irrational. Psychologists believe attraction is influenced by familiarity, emotional safety, shared values, and even childhood experiences. Interestingly, humans often seek partners who unconsciously remind them of emotional patterns from childhood. This explains why some people repeatedly choose unhealthy relationships. Love also activates fear. Fear of loss. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of rejection. Because true emotional connection gives another person the power to hurt us deeply. Yet humans continue searching for love. Because emotional connection gives life meaning. And perhaps that is the greatest psychological mystery of all. Confidence is not something people are born with. It is something the brain learns. Every experience, success, failure, and memory slowly shapes self-belief. Psychologists discovered confidence strongly affects perception. Confident individuals are often seen as more attractive, capable, and trustworthy, even when skill levels are equal. Why? Because confidence signals emotional stability. The human brain naturally follows certainty. But confidence is not arrogance. True confidence does not need constant attention or validation. It comes from self-trust. Ironically, many highly successful people secretly struggle with insecurity. This is called imposter syndrome. The feeling that success is undeserved. The brain remembers failure more strongly than success. That is why building confidence requires repetition. Small wins, positive habits, and learning not to define identity through mistakes. Confidence grows every time you survive something you once feared. Humans constantly compare themselves to others. Looks, money, success, relationships, status. This behavior is deeply rooted in psychology. Early humans survived in social groups where status affected access to resources and safety. The brain evolved to monitor social position. But modern comparison has become extreme. Social media shows carefully edited versions of reality. People compare their private struggles to other people's public highlights. This creates anxiety, insecurity, and feelings of inadequacy. Psychologists call this upward comparison, comparing yourself to someone perceived as better. While comparison can motivate growth, excessive comparison damages mental health. Because no human life is truly visible from the outside. Everyone hides pain, fear, failure, and insecurity. Real peace begins when people stop measuring their worth against strangers. Humans spend their entire lives chasing happiness. But psychology reveals something surprising. The brain quickly adapts to positive experiences. This is called hedonic adaptation, the new phone, the promotion, the relationship, the success. At first, happiness feels powerful. But eventually, the brain returns to its emotional baseline. This explains why external achievements rarely create permanent fulfillment. Humans constantly seek the next emotional reward, the next goal, the next distraction. But long-term happiness often comes from simpler things. Meaningful relationships, purpose, health, emotional peace, and gratitude. Psychologists discovered gratitude literally changes brain activity. It trains attention toward positive experiences instead of constant dissatisfaction. Perhaps happiness was never meant to be permanent. Maybe it exists in moments. And the purpose of life is not to constantly feel happy, but to fully experience being human.